Let's continue reading through the book of Galatians today in chapter 5, verses 16 to 18. This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these things are contrary the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would. But if ye be led of the Spirit, ye are not under the law. A lot of people get it backwards. They think they have to deny the flesh to walk in the Spirit, but it is the opposite. You walk in the Spirit so you can deny the flesh. Because God has given all who is His the Spirit. And to those who are led by the Spirit, you are not held captive to the law. To those who walk in the Spirit, you will not be burdened by the law. And I don't think verse 18 is talking about our positional standing, but rather our walk. Because Paul is talking to the Galatians and they are being burdened by the law because these Judaizers are taking them back under the law. But in position, they are still justified by God and they have the Spirit of God which justifies them before God. So Paul is trying to remind them to walk in the Spirit and don't rely on the law because the law is of the flesh, the law is not of faith. And we are to live the Christian life, walking by faith and not by sight. And if we are to be justified by walking in the Spirit or walking in love, then salvation becomes of works. Because love is quite literally a deed of the law. And Paul says we are justified by faith without the deeds of the law. But the passage before this and in Galatians 5, Paul is reminding these Galatians of the freedom in Christ. And circumcision means nothing but a faith which worketh by love. And again, Paul is not saying you are justified by love, but it's profitable. By our love, others know that we are His disciples. And when walking in the Spirit and leaning on the understanding of God and not our own understanding, that is when we live a fulfilling life. And the flesh is just our worldly thinking, our worldly understanding. And we know that no flesh shall boast in His sight. And when walking in the Spirit, the law has no dominion over us in our walk. Paul talks about the distinction and the battle between the Spirit and the flesh. The Spirit is just living a spiritual life, and the flesh is just worldly thinking in the worldly life. And we'll get more into the flesh and the Spirit in the next short, but this is why Paul says in verse 17, the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. These things are contrary to one another. We should not be relying on the flesh, but yield to the Spirit and walk in the Spirit.